Welcome back for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
We've had a lot of requests to unpack this book, Mantra Rahasya.
Oh yeah, this one's a gem.
It dives deep into mantras and their whole significance in Indian tradition.
And entirely in Hindi, too, which adds another layer to it.
Exactly. And, our listeners all about understanding not just the what, but the how and the why of these things.
Oh yeah, they want to go beyond just the surface level.
They're looking for a deeper understanding of how mantras work, the philosophy, the whole deal.
Well, I think they're in for some surprises.
Oh, absolutely. Mantra Rahasya really challenges a lot of those common misconceptions about mantras.
It definitely doesn't hold back. It goes way beyond that idea of mantras just being simple chants.
Right, like it's not just chanting for the sake of chanting.
Exactly. This book digs deep into how mantras can be powerful tools for personal growth.
Like actually impacting our lives.
Not just our inner world, but the book even suggests they can shape the energy of the universe itself.
Whoa, okay. That's a pretty big claim. I mean, most people think of mantras as just sounds or words.
Right, like something you just repeat.
Yeah, so how does Mantra Rahasya define them differently? What makes them more than just words?
Well, the book emphasizes that mantras are more like vibrational frequencies.
Vibrational frequency.
It's almost like tuning your radio to a specific station. Each mantra taps into a particular energy or cosmic force.
So each one has its own unique vibe.
You got it. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
Mantra Rahasya stresses that your inner consciousness is key to activating a mantra's power.
So it's not just about mindlessly reciting sounds.
Nope, it's about intentional engagement with those vibrations. You're actively participating in the process.
I'm starting to see why you said to expect surprises. So it's not just the words themselves, but the vibrations they create and how we connect with them.
Exactly. It's like a dance between the sound, the energy, and your own consciousness.
That makes a lot of sense. But this kind of knowledge, it doesn't seem as common as it used to be, right?
Sadly, no. Mantra Rahasya actually laments the decline of traditional mantra knowledge.
So this book is almost like a revival attempt.
In a way, yes. It points to factors like British colonialism and modernization as reasons why this ancient wisdom has faded.
Oh, that's a shame. Losing touch with those traditions. But this book, it's like bringing those practices back into the light. I can see why it fits perfectly with your desire to explore multiple perspectives.
Absolutely. The author blends a deep understanding of ancient traditions with a hope for passing that knowledge on to a new generation.
So it's a bridge between the old and the new.
You could say that. And what's really cool is that the book advocates for both theoretical and practical understanding.
So it's not just about knowing the history, it's about how to actually apply this knowledge.
Exactly. The author wants people to not just read about mantras, but to experience them, to work with them.
That makes me wonder, what does Mantra Rahasya say about the different types of mantras and how they're used?
Well, the book gets into how mantras are categorized based on gender, masculine, feminine, and neuter.
Mantras having genders. That's not something you hear every day. It makes you realize how much deeper this goes than just repeating words.
It definitely challenges those simple definitions.
Does the book talk about how and where to practice with mantras? Like, are there certain places that are better for certain mantras?
It does. It gets into detail about something called Shakti Pithas.
Shakti Pithas.
These are particular locations where mantra practice is believed to be most effective.
So we're talking about places with specific energies, like temples, meditation halls, that sort of thing.
Those are definitely included, but there are some surprises too. The book also recommends places like cremation grounds and isolated wilderness areas.
Cremation grounds, that's not unexpected. It seems like there's some pretty specific guidelines for using this kind of power.
You're right on the mark there. The book emphasizes ethical practice, advising against using mantras for harm, and focusing instead on their positive applications.
So it's not about wielding this power against others or for selfish reasons.
Exactly. It talks about using mantras for spiritual growth, protection, well-being, things that benefit you and others.
Makes sense. That idea, ethical use, makes me think about the guidance of a teacher. Does Mantra Rahasya talk about that aspect of mantra practice?
It definitely does. In fact, the book places huge importance on the role of a guru or spiritual teacher.
So like having an experienced guide to navigate this complex world.
Exactly. It sees the guru as crucial for transmitting authentic knowledge and protecting students from potential pitfalls, especially when we're talking about these more intense settings and the power that mantras might hold. It's like having a seasoned traveler show you the safe paths and warn you about the dangers.
Right, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Right. There are risks involved if you're not careful.
Exactly. And Mantra Rahasya is full of practical advice for those seeking to deepen their understanding and practice. It even goes into detail about specific techniques involved in working with mantras.
Okay, I'm ready to dive deeper into those techniques. What does the book say about how to actually practice with mantras?
Well, it describes practices like mantra sanskar, which are purification rituals.
Purification rituals for the mantras themselves.
You got it. And then there's Shodasopachar Puja, a 16-step ritualistic worship practice.
16 steps. That sounds incredibly detailed. Like, what does that even involve?
It is detailed, but the book lays it all out in a clear way. It also provides a detailed guide on selecting and activating mantras based on your individual needs.
Oh, interesting. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Definitely not. It even goes so far as to recommend considering astrological factors when choosing a mantra.
Wow, so it really gets personalized.
It does, and this is where it gets visually interesting, because the book includes diagrams called yantras.
Diagrams, like what kind of diagrams?
These yantras are associated with different mantras, and they're visual representations of their energy.
Oh, cool. So it's not just about the sounds, but there's a visual component as well.
Exactly. It's like we're talking about a whole system, not just simple chanting.
I'm guessing there are a lot of different mantras out there, each with its own purpose.
You are absolutely right. Mantra Rahasya provides examples of mantras for all sorts of purposes. Protection, healing, attracting love, you name it.
Wow, so there's a mantra for almost every need.
It seems that way. For example, it mentions the Shadakshar mantra for invoking Ganesha, the remover of obstacles.
Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. Who wouldn't want that on their side? Are there any other specific examples that stand out?
Oh, absolutely. It mentions the Shri Suktam for attracting wealth and prosperity.
Lakshmi. Always a popular one.
And then there's the Durga Ashtashara mantra for protection and overcoming challenges.
Of Durga, the warrior goddess. Powerful stuff. And then there's also that whole discussion of mantra siddhi that we talked about before.
Ah, yes, mastery over a mantra. Now that's where things get really interesting.
It almost sounds like something out of a superhero comic. What does that actually entail? What does mantra siddhi look like in practice?
Well, according to Mantra Rahasya, siddhi can lead to some pretty incredible abilities, including spiritual enlightenment and even supernatural powers.
Wait, supernatural powers? Like, what kind of powers are we talking about here?
It talks about both major and minor siddhis, with the major ones including things like changing your size, becoming invisible, and even defying death.
Okay, that definitely goes beyond my initial understanding of what mantras can do. It sounds like Mantra Rahasya is careful to ground these ideas in a spiritual context. Like, it's not just about gaining superpowers for the sake of it.
You are absolutely right. The book emphasizes that true siddhi is about inner transformation, not just external powers.
So it's not about becoming some kind of magical celebrity.
Definitely not. It's about aligning yourself with those deeper forces in the universe. It's about wisdom, compassion, and using these extraordinary abilities for the benefit of all, not just for personal gain.
That's a much more inspiring way to think about it. So it's not just about the power itself, but the intention behind it and how it's used.
Exactly. And that brings us to one of the key themes of Mantra Rahasya,
Which is?
ethical practice. The book constantly reminds us that mantras should be used responsibly and with a pure heart. It cautions against using them for selfish or harmful purposes.
So it's like wielding a powerful tool you need to use it with wisdom and compassion.
Precisely. Mantra Rahasya emphasizes aligning yourself with the principles of dharma, righteousness, and ethical conduct.
It's like having a superpower and remembering that with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. The book even suggests that misusing mantras can have negative karmic consequences.
Oh, wow. So it's not something to be taken lightly.
Definitely not. It's about recognizing the potential impact of your actions and aligning your intentions with the highest spiritual principles. It's about respecting the power of mantras and using them for good, not for selfish desires or to harm others.
This is all so fascinating. I'm already rethinking everything I thought I knew about mantras. What stands out to you so far?
What really strikes me is how Mantra Rahasya presents mantra practice as both sophisticated and practical.
It's not just about mystical mumbo-jumbo.
Not at all. It's a system of knowledge deeply rooted in both spiritual and worldly wisdom.
I'm eager to hear more about those specifics, like those intriguing seed syllables you mentioned earlier. What are those all about?
Ah, yes, the Biha mantras. Those are fascinating. Let's delve into those next. Those seed syllables, or Biha mantras, They're like the DNA of a mantra.
DNA. Okay, so not literally DNA, right?
Right, not literally, but they're the core sound, the vibration that carries the essential energy of the mantra.
So instead of a whole phrase, it's like a single sound that holds all that power.
Exactly, like a concentrated dose of energy. The book gives the example of Hrim. It's associated with Shakti, the divine feminine energy.
Oh, I've heard of Shakti. So it's like a shortcut, like dialing a direct number instead of going through a whole phone menu.
That's a great way to put it. And these Biha mantras, they can be combined with other sounds to create those more complex mantras.
Like musical notes building a melody.
Exactly. Each one has a unique vibration and meaning.
So we're uncovering a whole secret language here.
You could say that. The book suggests that you can even use these seed syllables on their own for specific purposes.
Like just chanting Hrim to connect with Shakti.
Well, it mentions another one too, Shrim,
Frim.
associated with Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth.
Oh, so someone could just chant Shrim to attract abundance. It seems almost too simple, considering all this talk of complex rituals and locations.
Well, the book does emphasize that whether you use them alone or within a larger mantra, understanding the power and meaning of those seed syllables is crucial. It's not just blindly repeating sounds, it's about knowing what you're connecting to.
It's like learning the alphabet before trying to write poetry, those foundational pieces. But I know mantra Rahasya doesn't just talk about seed syllables. What about those specific mantras and their applications? Does it get into that too?
It does. It mentions mantras for protection, healing, attracting love, even for finding lost objects.
Wow, there's a mantra for everything.
There really does seem to be. The book even gets into some of the more intense mantras used in tantric practices.
Ooh, Tantra. Now that's a whole other deep dive waiting to happen. But sticking with mantra Rahasya, for now, I'm really curious about those purification rituals, mantra sanskar. What does the book say about those? Like, what are they all about?
It describes them as pretty essential. Like, they're key to unlocking the mantra's full potential. It involves specific chants and rituals, sometimes using elements like water, fire, or incense.
So it's not just about saying the words, it's about creating a sacred space
Right.
and energetically preparing the mantra itself.
Precisely. The book stresses approaching mantra practice with reverence and pure intentions, like you're handling something sacred.
Speaking of sacred space,
Yeah.
I remember we talked about Shakti Pithas, those power spots where mantra practice is believed to be most effective. We touched on cremation grounds and wilderness, but are there other kinds of places that are considered Shakti Pithas? Like, what else is on that list?
Well, there are temples dedicated to specific deities, also natural locations like mountains, caves, riverbanks.
So it's about finding places that already resonate with that energy you're trying to connect with. It makes me think of how some people feel more connected to nature, while others find peace in temples.
That's a great connection. And Mantra Rahasya suggests these locations can amplify the effect of your mantra practice, almost like the environment itself becomes part of the ritual.
It's like the energy of the place is adding to the energy of the mantra, creating a more powerful experience.
Exactly. But I know a lot of people are probably thinking, well, what if I don't have access to a cremation ground or a mountaintop every day?
Right, like can you still practice mantras effectively in everyday life without those ideal conditions?
That's a great question. And while the book highlights the benefits of having a guru and practicing in those specific locations, it does acknowledge that not everyone has access to those things.
So what does it suggest for those of us who are, let's say, location challenged?
It offers guidance for practicing independently, but it stresses the need for extra diligence and self-awareness if you're going that route.
So it's like setting off on a journey without a guide. You can do it, but you have to be extra prepared
Yeah,
and pay close attention to your surroundings.
exactly. The book emphasizes studying diligently, following the guidelines carefully, and being mindful of potential pitfalls. It even suggests seeking guidance from experienced practitioners if a guru isn't available, like maybe finding a teacher online or someone in your community who's knowledgeable about mantra practice.
So even if you can't find a traditional guru, you can still find some form of guidance and support. It seems like the core message is about making that connection however you can.
Absolutely. The book reminds us that mantra practice is ultimately about connecting with something larger than ourselves.
Tapping into that universal energy.
Exactly. It's a path of self-discovery and spiritual awakening. And those journeys, they can take many forms. In fact, speaking of journeys, the book actually recounts a pilgrimage the author himself undertook, visiting various Shakti Pithas throughout India.
Wow, so he was putting these ideas into practice,
Yeah.
seeking out those power spots firsthand.
Exactly. And he describes this one encounter that really stuck with me.
Oh, what was that?
He had a memorable meeting with an agori.
And a Corey.
You know, those ascetics known for their, well, unconventional practices?
Oh, right. The ones who hang out in cremation grounds and embrace those darker aspects of life and death.
Yes, them. The book describes this meeting as both fascinating and a bit unnerving.
I can imagine.
Apparently, the agori shared some insights about mantra practice and even demonstrated some of his abilities.
That sounds like an experience that would definitely shift your perspective.
Oh, absolutely. It's a reminder that wisdom can be found in unexpected places, and sometimes from unexpected teachers.
Right, like you don't always find enlightenment in a pristine meditation hall. Sometimes it's in the midst of life's messiness.
Exactly. Now, building on this idea of diverse practices, I think it's time we circle back to mantra sanskar, those purification rituals. What specific steps does mantra rahasya outline? Like, what does that process actually look like?
You mentioned chanting, visualization, and using elements like water and fire. It sounds almost like a multisensory experience. What's the purpose of all those elements?
The book describes it as a way to, well, activate the mantra's full potential. It's about removing any energetic obstacles or impurities that might be hindering its effectiveness.
So you wouldn't want to use a rusty tool for a precise job.
Right.
It makes sense to prepare the mantra energetically as well.
That's a great way to put it. And Mantra Rahasya provides detailed instructions on how to perform mantra sanskar for different types of mantras. It even suggests specific mantras to use during the purification process.
It's a ritual within a ritual, preparing the energy before you even begin the main practice.
It sets the stage, creates that sacred container for the work you're about to do.
This is giving me a whole new appreciation for the depth and detail involved in mantra practice. It's not just about chanting a few words. There's so much more to it.
Exactly. It's a whole system of knowledge and practice, passed down through generations. And remember, we also touched on the concept of mantra siddhi earlier, that state of mastery, which can lead to some pretty incredible abilities.
That's the part I'm really curious about. It almost sounds like something out of a superhero comic. What kinds of abilities does the book describe? Like, what can you actually do if you achieve mantra siddhi?
Get ready, because we're talking about things like becoming invisible, levitating, walking on water, controlling the elements, even traveling through time. It's pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Wow, that's some serious cosmic power.
Mm-hmm.
It's like something straight out of science fiction. But I'm guessing there's a catch, right? I mean, mantra rahasya seems to emphasize the ethical use of mantras. So it's not just about gaining these powers for personal gain, is it?
You're absolutely right. The book is very clear that true siddhi isn't about gaining powers for selfish reasons or personal gain. It's not about becoming some kind of magical celebrity or using these abilities to control others.
So it's not about ego or power trips.
Definitely not. The book states that true siddhi, it arises naturally from deep spiritual practice, and it's meant to be used to serve a greater good.
So it's about wisdom, compassion, and using those extraordinary abilities for the benefit of all, not just yourself.
Exactly. And speaking of specific intentions, let's look at some of the individual mantras the book highlights. One that stands out is the Shadakshara mantra, dedicated to Ganesha, the remover of obstacles.
Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. I can see why that one's so popular. I think we could all use a little bit of Ganesha's help sometimes, right?
Absolutely. And the book describes it as incredibly powerful for overcoming challenges and achieving success in any endeavor. It even includes a specific yantra, a diagram that visually represents the mantra's energy.
So it's like a visual focus for the practice, adding another layer of depth.
Exactly. And Mantra Rahasya stresses the importance of chanting this mantra with faith and devotion to Ganesha.
So it's not just about the words, it's about invoking his energy and inviting his guidance.
Precisely. Now, another mantra that caught my eye is the Sri Suktam, associated with Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and abundance.
Ah, Lakshmi. I can definitely see why someone interested in attracting wealth and prosperity might be drawn to that one, especially in today's world, right?
It's a popular one for sure. And the book describes it as a powerful mantra for attracting both material and spiritual prosperity. It even claims that chanting the Sri Suktam can alleviate poverty, bring financial stability, and create opportunities for growth and expansion.
It's almost like using sound to manifest your desires.
It is a powerful concept, and the book provides detailed instructions on how to chant it correctly, including pronunciation and rhythm. It even suggests specific offerings to please Lakshmi and enhance the mantra's effectiveness.
Offerings, like what kind of things are we talking about here?
Things like lotus flowers, gold coins, sweets, things that represent abundance and prosperity.
It's like creating an environment of abundance,
Mhm.
appealing to Lakshmi's energy through those symbols of prosperity,
Yes.
like tracks, right.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a little, Mantra Rahasya also highlights the Durga Ashtakshara mantra. This one is dedicated to Durga, the warrior goddess.
Durga, I can already feel the powerful energy there. She's a force to be reckoned with.
She is, and the book describes her as a fierce protector, someone who destroys evil and fiercely defends her devotees.
I like the sound of that.
It says that chanting her mantra, it can banish fear, boost your courage, and empower you to face challenges with strength and determination.
It's like calling on her warrior spirit to guide and protect you.
Exactly. The book suggests chanting this mantra during difficult times, when you're facing obstacles, or when you just need a surge of courage.
It's like having a divine bodyguard by your side.
You could say that. But remember, Mantra Rahasya doesn't just focus on individual mantras. It also talks about some broader principles of mantra practice that apply across the board.
Right, like those general guidelines that are helpful no matter what mantra you're working with. What are some of those key principles that the book emphasizes?
Well, it really stresses the importance of consistency, dedication, and above all, faith.
So it's not a quick fix. Like you're not going to chant a mantra once and suddenly have all your problems solved.
It's a practice. It requires genuine effort and commitment, like anything worthwhile, right?
Right, you've got to put in the work.
And the book is very clear that without faith, even the most powerful mantra won't be effective.
So it's not just about going through the motions. It's about really believing in the power of what you're doing.
Exactly. It's about aligning your thoughts, your emotions, your actions with the energy of the mantra you're working with.
So it's like creating that resonance between your inner world and the cosmic forces you're invoking.
That reminds me, we talked about ethical practice earlier, the idea of not using mantras for harmful purposes. Does the book bring up any other ethical considerations? Like, what are some of the things we need to be mindful of as we embark on this path?
It stresses the importance of only using mantras for positive purposes, avoiding any kind of selfish or manipulative intentions.
So no trying to control other people with these mantras.
Definitely not. The book cautions against trying to manipulate others with these practices. It's about self-development and spiritual growth, not about bending others to your will.
So it's about respecting the power of mantras and using them responsibly, not as weapons.
Exactly. And it also emphasizes aligning yourself with the principles of dharma, righteousness, ethical conduct.
It's like wielding a powerful tool. You need to use it with wisdom and compassion.
Exactly. The book even suggests that misusing mantras can lead to some, well, negative karmic consequences. Oh wow, so it's not something to be taken lightly. There are real consequences to our actions, even in the spiritual realm.
It's about recognizing that impact and making sure your intentions are pure.
This is definitely giving a lot to think about.
And remember, Mantra Rahasya is very clear. The true power of mantras lies not in achieving those external results, but in inner transformation.
So it's about using these practices to cultivate inner peace, wisdom, and compassion. Those qualities that benefit not just ourselves, but everyone around us.
Exactly. It's a journey of self-discovery, spiritual awakening, guided by those sacred sounds of the universe. We've covered a lot of ground here, exploring the intricacies of mantra practice as laid out in Mantra Rahasya.
Right. It's been an incredible journey. And honestly, I'm amazed by how much depth there is to these seemingly simple practices.
Yeah, it's easy to underestimate the power of sound and vibration.
It's like we've been given a glimpse into this hidden language of the universe.
And Mantra Rahasya offers us a window into that rich tradition of mantra practice in India, a tradition that's been passed down for centuries. It provides guidance, wisdom for navigating life's challenges, and ultimately reaching spiritual liberation.
It's incredible to think that this ancient wisdom is still so relevant today. Like it still has so much to offer us, even in the modern world.
Absolutely. And Mantra Rahasya encourages further exploration. It invites us to delve deeper into this fascinating world, maybe try chanting some of those mantras we discussed, researching the meaning behind those seed syllables.
It's an invitation to keep learning, keep growing, to see where this path might lead.
Exactly. The journey of discovery is yours to take. Now, we've covered the philosophy, the practices, the ethical considerations, but, Mantra Rahasya actually touches on something that might surprise you.
Okay, you've definitely got my attention. What else is there to explore? What did I miss?
It delves into the science behind mantras, suggesting that there might be more to these practices than just ancient tradition.
Science. and mantras. Now, that's a combination I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
How does mantra Rahasya connect those two worlds? Like, what does science have to say about the power of mantras?
Well, it explores this idea that mantras, they create these specific vibrations that can actually have a real impact on our physical and mental states.
So it's not just about a feeling of peace or calm or something like that.
Right, it goes deeper.
It suggests that the sounds of these mantras can influence us on a physiological level.
Yeah, like a measurable impact.
But how? How does it explain that?
It actually draws some parallels to modern scientific principles,
Okay, like what?
things like resonance and frequency.
So it's suggesting that there's a scientific basis for the power of mantras, not just like a spiritual belief.
Exactly. It even mentions some research that's been done on how specific sound frequencies can affect brainwave patterns
Oh, why?
and even cellular activity.
Huh. So maybe there's a lot more to sound and vibration than we realize.
Right, like a whole world we're just starting to understand.
And mantra Rahasya goes even further than that, right?
Oh, yeah, it suggests that our intentions and focus, they play a role in amplifying these effects.
So you're not just passively listening to these sounds
Nope, it's about actively engaging with the mantra.
and focusing your intention on the outcome you're looking for.
Precisely. It suggests that when we chant with a lot of concentration and clarity, we create a more powerful resonance.
Almost like focusing a beam of light.
Exactly.
And that reminds me of meditation, like how focusing our attention can really shift our inner state.
That's a great connection. And building on that idea of focused energy, Mantra Rahasya gets into the connection between mantras and the chakras.
Okay, now we're getting into the more esoteric side of things.
Well, the book explains it in a very practical way.
Okay, how so?
It explains how different mantras are associated with specific chakras and how chanting those mantras can actually help to balance and activate those energy centers.
Oh, interesting.
It's like using sound to fine-tune our energetic system.
A sonic tune-up.
Exactly. But Mantra Rahasya, it goes even further.
Oh, how much further can we go?
Well, it explores the idea that mantras can actually influence reality itself.
Wait, hold on. Mantras changing reality. What does that even mean?
It suggests that mantras aren't just sounds, but they're vibrational patterns that can impact the fabric of the universe.
So like those vibrations riffle outwards and create changes beyond what we can immediately see.
Exactly. It even connects this to the concept of mantra siddhi, suggesting that mastery can lead to the ability to manifest desires, control the elements, even bend time and space.
Okay, that's some next level stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it also talks about the responsibility that comes with that kind of power.
You know it. The book is very clear that this level of mastery is only attained through years of dedicated practice and a pure heart.
So no cutting corners or using these powers for selfish reasons.
Definitely not. It's about aligning yourself with the deeper forces of the universe and using that power for good.
Not for like personal gain or quick fixes.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of everything,
And using these practices to make a positive difference.
both in ourselves and in the world.
It's like we can become conscious co-creators of reality using these ancient sounds.
That's a powerful way to think about it. And one thing I really appreciate about Mantra Rahasya is that it doesn't limit mantra practice to just chanting.
Oh, there are other ways to work with them.
It mentions writing mantras, visualizing them, even listening to them being chanted by others.
Oh, interesting.
And it suggests that each method has its own unique benefits.
So there's no right or wrong way to do it.
It depends on your individual needs and preferences.
And what resonates with you most.
Exactly. But it does emphasize the importance of finding a qualified teacher.
Especially if you're exploring those more advanced practices.
It's about honoring the tradition and respecting the power of these practices.
Not just diving in head first without any guidance.
Right. It's good to have someone who can guide you along the path.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Mantra Rahasya, what are some of the key takeaways for our listener? What should they walk away with from this exploration?
Well, for me, it's the realization that mantras are so much more than just these mystical sounds.
They're not just something you chant in a yoga class.
Right. They're tools for spiritual growth, for connecting with something bigger than ourselves, and potentially even for shaping our reality.
But it's about using them responsibly, with a pure heart.
Exactly. And I think Mantra Rahasya offers a really profound exploration of the world of mantras.
It encourages us to really approach this ancient practice with reverence and dedication and a willingness to, awaken to our full potential.
Maybe even unlock some of those hidden mysteries of the universe along the way.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities. This has been a truly fascinating deep dive.
Full of unexpected twists and turns, right?
Absolutely. I'm so glad we had the chance to explore this together.
Me too. It's been a pleasure.
And for our listener, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those vibrations high.
Namaste.